When we moved within Düsseldorf in 2022, one of the items on our to-do list was to actually choose an electricity provider for our new flat. In this video, we share the steps that we took and also talk into detail about electricity in Germany and also give you some pointers so hopefully you can choose the best provider for your needs. There are 3 steps for choosing an electricity provider in Germany. Let's start with step number 1, and that is actually understanding how electricity in Germany is measured.
So for you to get a basic understanding about the German electricity market, there are 5 parameters or like 5 things that you should know.
Number 1 is that the cost of electricity is not included in your rent.
Unless you are in a short-term furnished apartment, there usually all utilities, including electricity, are already part of the rental price. But in a regular, long-term, unfurnished, regular apartment, electricity is not part of the rent. So that also means that you can choose the provider that you would like to use, because there is not just one. No, there is thousands in Germany.
Number 2 is the estimated versus actual price that you pay.
Correct, yes. The way it works in Germany for electricity and also actually for other utilities, but we're focusing on electricity here, is that you will pay an estimated price of your consumption on a monthly basis. That means that you will need to guess, there's estimates you can follow, how much electricity you will be consuming per month, per year, and based on that, your price that you will pay monthly will be calculated. Now, of course, that is just an estimate, and once a year, usually after 1 year, your electricity provider will send you an actual bill on which it gets calculated or shown to you your actual consumption of the past year with the actual price that you will need to pay. If it is less than, you're consuming less than estimated, you will get money back, and you do actually also get it back. If you consume more than is estimated, you will have to pay extra, and that is in Germany usually called Nachzahlung.
I want to clarify that the bill that you get at the end of the year doesn't mean that you pay once a year, you're paying a monthly fee. And this bill is more like a report telling you, hey, you were paying a month this consumption of kilowatts, but in reality, you're consuming more or you're consuming less. And that's the differentiation that you get in this report.
Right, it just balances it out.
Yeah.
It's like the real truth.
Yeah.
And based on that, depending on whether the estimate was correct, too high, too low, also your payment for the following year monthly will be adjusted. So that the goal is to always have the estimate as close to reality as possible. And your monthly payment is usually called Abschlag.
When you're looking at prices of electricity, you will usually see 2 words being thrown around in German. Number 1 is the Grundpreis, and that is kind of like the basic fee for connectivity, mind you. And that is between 6 to 8 euros a month.
At the
moment, right, of 2023 that we're recording this. This, of course, can change in the future. But this is like a fixed amount that you will pay yes or yes.
Correct, yeah. And then comes the so-called Arbeitspreis, so the actual price per kilowatt hour of usage. And that is pretty much the price that determines how much you will be paying per month, because the more you use, the more you pay, and the higher that price, the more you pay also.
Point number 5 is that for your first year, how do you even estimate how much you're going to be consuming per year? So there's a handy table that we pulled from some statistics that we're putting on the screen now. And here you have an estimate of how much kilowatts is consumed per amount of people living in the house. So if it's 1 person, it is usually 2,000 kilowatts.
Well, it's the average.
It's the average, yeah. 2 people, it's around 3,200, and a family of 3 or more, it's usually 5,000 kilowatts.
Now, these are the averages of all of Germany, and of course they vary a little bit on everyone's behavior and the appliances that they also have, which consume electricity the most. Yeah. Now, to give you another number to work with is that Jen and I, a 2-person household, we usually consume around 2,300 to 2,500 kilowatt hours of electricity per year. So we are below the average of the German population per se in a 2-person household. Just something for you to work with as well, to guesstimate where you might be landing. If you're liking this video and it's helping you to settle into life in Germany more smoothly, then please also make sure to hit the like button. And if you've seen us a couple of times and have not subscribed yet, please also subscribe if you'd like to see more of us.
And if you want to go the extra mile, you can always buy us a virtual coffee at simplegermany.com/coffee. Thank you for your support. Now that you have an understanding of the parameters in Germany regarding electricity, let's jump to step number 2, and that is actually choosing your electricity provider. So as the day of recording, there are currently 3 ways that you can can pick an electricity provider in Germany.
So the goal of this video is for you to not be intimidated by the abundance of electricity providers out there, or the media that especially was very loud in last year, 2022, with the energy crisis, but for you to make a conscious, educated choice. So option number one is to stay with your Grundversorger, your basic city provider. Now, why do I use the word stay and not change to? Because as a matter of fact, wherever you move into a new flat, you will always have electricity. It's not that you first need to sign a contract and then suddenly the
lights turn on.
The lights turn on, exactly. But you will always have electricity, and that will automatically, by default, be pulled from the basic city provider. So that's why I'm saying staying with them, because you can consciously choose to not do anything but just stay with them.
And if that is the case, you could leave things as they are and wait for the bill to come. However, that is not exactly the best choice.
Correct, yes, because you would like to tell them when you moved in, what the stand of electricity was, which we will talk at the end of the video a bit more in detail, to also make sure you're only paying what you actually consumed and not possibly for someone that had lived in the apartment beforehand.
Totally. We will go into details on how to sign up to electricity in step number 3, which is coming at the end of this video. So let's go back here to the Grundversorger, or the basic city provider. One of the things you should be aware of is that their website, as again, time of recording, it's only in German.
Most of the times. And also to clarify is the basic city provider varies, of course, from city to city, from area to area. Most often enough, the Grundversorger, basic city provider, starts with the term Stadtwerke. To find out who your Grundversorger is, you can simply Google Grundversorger plus your city, and you will most likely find a company that starts with Stadtwerke and your city. In Düsseldorf, it's really called Stadtwerke Düsseldorf. But they may also have different names in different cities, but this is how you can find them.
And also interesting to point out is that if you decide to stay with your Grundversorger, then you are not tied into a fixed contract. You can cancel the contract or the deal that you have with them with a notice of 2 weeks.
Correct.
And regarding pricing, you pay a fixed price per month. As we mentioned also at the beginning of the video, this is also the case where you pay every month something, and at the end of the year, the total amount gets adjusted based on the fact if you consumed more or less kilowatts on that year. And if there is any price changes, meaning if the price will go up, then they need to inform you with at least 6 weeks in advance.
Then there's option number 2, where you can actively change your provider and, for example, choose a provider like Ostrom. Ostrom is relatively new on the market since 2020. They are modern, they are all digital, and they are here to kind of like shake up the electricity market in Germany by their pricing model, but also by the fact that they are providing the services in English.
Wow.
And that is the only one out there, and a big pro, of course, if that is a priority for you.
Another cool thing about Ostrom is that you have an app where you can actually check the consumption of your household per day or per month, so it's very transparent. And regarding contracts, where you do have a contract with them, but you can cancel it on a monthly basis. Now here is the thing about pricing with Ostrom, and this is something that you need to decide consciously. When you do have a contract with Ostrom, you pay the market price. So what does that mean?
It means that the prices are a little bit more volatile, and you most likely will not pay the same price, let's say, for 2 years in a row. But more, the prices may go up, but very important, also the prices may go down. Now, what we experienced is last year especially that most electricity providers increased the prices because market prices got expensive, including Ostrom. However, the thing that Ostrom did that most other energy providers don't do is Ostrom also lowered the monthly price that you pay once the prices started dropping again. And with everyone else, you usually kept paying the higher price.
Don't think that when the market price changes, the next day you will immediately start paying more or less. Ostrom also needs to inform you 4 weeks in advance of any price changes that might happen.
And option number 3 is the traditional comparison of every provider out there via a comparison platform called Stromauskunft. Now, there are plenty of others, but this is our comparisons of platform of choice for electricity, because that's the only thing that they focus on.
Versus the other platforms, they focus on another abundant of also services. So we think the more focused the company is, hopefully the better also things you might find.
Now, Stromauskunft allows you to probably compare around 100 providers that service your area.
Wow.
and that can be a little bit overwhelming. That's why we have a written guide that we link in the description box below, where we guide you step by step on how to do that, because of course everything will be also in German. Now, one big important thing I would just like to point out is that on the front page, when you start the comparison, there is a little box that you should tick where it says Deutschlands beste Stromversorger, so Germany's best electricity providers. Please tick that box, because that will ensure that you will only get shown results of reliable electricity providers. As also we have heard in the news last year with the surging prices, a few providers went bankrupt, leaving, of course, their customers hanging in a way, and that is no bueno, and you don't want to choose such providers, which then would not be part of that comparison.
No bueno. Now, the contract, it highly depends on which provider you choose, but usually it ranges between 1 to 2 years that you're locked into this contract.
Now, that can be a good thing if you're locked into a contract with a price guarantee of a relatively low price. It can be a bad thing if you're locked into a contract with a relatively high price. The thing is with these comparison platforms is that pricing of the providers is very intransparent. That means that the monthly price that's being shown is usually on par or even higher than the first two options we discussed. However, they try to fish you in as a new customer by offering bonuses. Sometimes they get paid at the beginning of the contract, which that is what you want. Or they only get paid at the end of the contract if you actually continue after the price guarantee ends, and then you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So that's just one big disclaimer to look out for. Usually once you choose that option, you should start changing every single time your contract changes, because otherwise you will most likely end up with higher prices.
Talking about that, is there a limited amount of times I can change electricity in Germany?
Nowhere, there's no written rule, but also here we've heard in the German news that sometimes providers actually reject, that's the right word, reject new customers because they have changed too many times. To us personally, that has never happened. We have done that also via Stromauskunft a couple of times.
Yeah, so just to make it clear, the strategy of this Stromauskunft is that you get a provider where you get bonuses, so you get a cheaper price. You stay with this price guarantee contract 1 or 2 years. When that contract is over, you move providers to another one that also gives you bonuses, and you have to be changing every 2 years or so, with the risk that maybe at some point people or the company might reject you because you've done this too many times.
Possibly.
To have an overview of the 3 options and their pros and cons, we have prepared this comparison table that we will show you now. So let's start with the Grundversorger, or the basic city provider. The pros is that it's easy to sign up, it is super flexible, and it's very transparent in pricing.
The cons are that it is mostly in German only. It is possibly the more expensive choice, since Grundversorgers tend to have higher prices, and you don't have an actual control of your consumption on a daily or monthly basis with a cool modern app. Also, mostly Grundversorgers don't use green energy providers or sources.
Now about Ostrom, the pros is that they have an English website, app, and support. It is super easy to sign up. It is super flexible. It's very transparent. They have green energy, and they have this app where you can easily have an overview of your consumption per day, week, and month.
Now the con is that it could be possibly more expensive in the short term, and that monthly price is more volatile depending on the market price. Hence, you cannot say, okay, for the next year, every month I'll pay this. Possibly there may be changes.
And now Stromauskunft, the pros are that it's possibly the cheapest option, meaning when you compare the different providers, you might find a really good deal. Another pro is that you can choose to actually have an green energy provider.
And the cons are that it's in German only. It is not flexible because you will most likely find cheap options that lock you in a contract of 1 or 2 years. And the pricing is very intransparent because of these bonus options.
So you might be wondering, whoa, okay, so which one is the best provider for me? And this highly depends on also what you think it's a priority. If your priority at all costs is to have something in English that you can easily navigate, then definitely you should consider Ostrom, with the warning again that the prices might go up or again down.
But that's just also the market price, right? So that's kind of like how life is in that sense, yeah? If the priority for you is to have the most flexible option to get out of something very soon in case your life changes because you're not so sure yet where you will go, then the Grundversorger or Ostrom are the best options because you have 2 weeks or respectively a month to quit the contract.
If you want the cheapest price, then you should actually invest some time to exploring all 3 options and actually finding the best deal.
Correct, and this is usually what I am doing. So to give you an example is that 2 years ago, I went down the rabbit hole and compared all of the 3 providers and found for us the best option was a provider via Stromauskunft. We locked ourselves into 2 years of a contract with a relatively low consumption price, and we're rather happy with that. The benefit of that was that we were still locked in a contract with a low price while the prices surged last year and kind of like skyrocketed, and we didn't have to deal with it. We weren't affected because we had the price guarantee of a low price, and our provider did not increase regardless.
Yes, because there were some providers that even though you had a price guarantee, they informed their customers and they gave them the option to either cancel their contract or accept the new high price.
Correct, yeah. So we were lucky in that sense, and that was a good deal for us. Now, when we moved within Düsseldorf last year, we actually needed a new provider because the contract that we were still locked in was running out. And I again compared all 3 options and chose not to sign another contract that locks us into a 1 or 2 year period with Stromauskunft, but we actually chose to stay with the Grundversorger at the time because in Düsseldorf the prices were actually relatively low compared to the rest of Germany, and the language barrier of German in that case for me of course was not an issue, which is why we just stayed with the Grundversorger. What I usually do is every half a year to a year I take another look at the market and see which option suits me better or suits us better in that moment, so I'm always open to also change to Ostrom or take another provider via Stromauskunft.
We have left the links for both our guide, which goes into detail on how to compare providers in Stromauskunft, as well as the links to Ostrom. And we cannot link to the Grundversorger because that depends on your city, but all those links will be in the description box below. The links to Stromauskunft and Ostrom, they're affiliate links, so if you decide to get a service from them, we will get a commission at no extra cost to you. And now to the most important step. Step number 3 is how do you sign up to electricity? Actually, I was surprised by the fact that this is a relatively easy process.
It's super easy, and all 3 providers or options in that sense actually allow you to sign up online. So there is no letters you need to send or anything like that. Now there is one caveat. Before you can sign up with any provider, you do need a German bank account. So if you're completely fresh, this should be your number 1 priority, which you can watch this video up there where we go into detail of which bank account might fit your needs.
Another requirement that you need is actually to gather information from your meter, electricity meter, which in Germany is called
Stromzähler.
So of course you will need to have access to the apartment to be able to take these numbers down. Now we will tell you some information about these numbers and the difference between them and where to find them.
Now usually on the day that you get the keys for your apartment, where you have the handover, the Übergabe, the person giving you the handover, whether it's the landlord or someone else, should, and you should insist, to show you the Stromzähler, the electricity meter. For 2 reasons. Usually during the Übergabe, the handover, you have a sheet of paper where the status quo and like cleanliness of the apartment is noted down, and also the number of the electricity meter. So there's 2 numbers you need to know.
So the first number is the meter number, or the Zählernummer, and that's the number that identifies your house, and you definitely need this one to sign up to any of the electricity providers.
Well, it doesn't only identify your house, but it identifies the specific apartment. Because if you live in a multi-story apartment building with several apartments, it can be quite confusing because there might be, if there's 10 flats, 10 different meters, yeah. And you should know which one is yours.
Yes. And the second number?
The second number is the Zählerstand, so the actual consumption reading of the meter. It should look something like this, and there are 7 numbers that you should note. However, only the first 6 are important. The one that is in the red bracket and moving the fastest is you can disregard. So the first 6 white numbers you should note down.
It's important that you do this on the day of the Übergabe, or the handover, because it's not always clear where these electricity meters are put in the house. Sometimes it can be in the basement, sometimes they're in a cupboard right at the entrance, sometimes they're divided into different sections. In our previous flat, there was a basement with like 4 different places where the meters were. So of course you need the help of the person giving you the flat to identify where your meter is.
Correct. Write down that number again, so you will only start paying from that consumption reading and not from anything beforehand.
Another tip is to take a picture of this number, so you always have proof of this is how it was on this date at this time.
Now that you have all the numbers straight and you have your German bank account, you can go online to the website of the provider of your choice and sign up. I mean, you can translate the website to English if it's not Ostrom, and you just need to enter your name, your address, your bank details, and the Zähler number and the Zähler reading. And then, depending on the provider that you choose, you'll either get the information via email or via postal mail. So also be sure you have that name on the mailbox. And that's it. And then you will pretty much, they will start pulling the money from your bank account on a monthly basis, and you'll probably hear from them again a year later.
Now, if you're changing electricity providers, meaning it is not the first time you get an electricity provider, any of the 3 options that we mentioned most likely will also offer the service to cancel your previous contract for you.
If it's cancelable.
If it's cancelable, of course, it needs to be cancelable. Which also leads to the other thing that is important to mention is that you are allowed to also move with your contract to a new house as long as that provider is in that place.
Services that place, yeah.
Yeah, because I would say if I have the Grundversorger in Düsseldorf and I move to Munich, I cannot transfer that contract because the Grundversorger in Munich is
Whereas
different.
Ostrom supplies all over Germany, so you could totally move from Düsseldorf to Munich and keep Ostrom.
Choosing your electricity provider consciously is one of our 10 tips to save money in Germany. To find the other 9, you can check the video that we link here on the left. Until next time, cheers! There are 3 steps for picking an electricity provider in Germany. Let's start with step number 1.
No. Oh, okay.
What?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Germans, no?
Yeah, I got confused with the 3 options in it.